This is an all-day live alert.
This is an all-day live alert. I'm BC Onowiri. We will bring you out to the U.S. courthouse in Minneapolis, where we will hear from law enforcement at any moment. Authorities are expected to announce charges against more than a dozen gang members as part of a federal violent crime strategy. Speaking today, U.S. Attorney Andrew Luger, Chief Deputy Chasey Martin from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, among many others. This is scheduled to begin at 2 o'clock, so we'll bring you out there right now as they prepare to head to the podium.
Good afternoon. Today I am joined by local, state, and federal law enforcement leaders to announce the latest set of charges against Minneapolis gang members as part of our ongoing federal violent crime strategy. Today's charges include 14 defendants who are alleged to be members or associates of the Highs gang in North Minneapolis. 11 are charged with RICO conspiracy and fentanyl trafficking offenses. One is charged with kidnapping and assault on behalf of the Highs during a carjacking. 2 of the 14 defendants are based in Arizona and are charged as suppliers of fentanyl to the Highs. The offenses are set forth in a superseding indictment, which adds charges and defendants to the May 3rd indictment against the Highs. This slide lists the 12 new defendants in Minnesota charged with RICO and gang offenses. The slide also shows the 2 defendants in Arizona who are alleged to have supplied fentanyl to the Highs to be distributed on the streets of Minneapolis. As alleged in the superseding indictment, defendants Jadarius Wright and Carlos Serrano supplied fentanyl to the Highs in Minneapolis by mail and air. The Minnesota defendants then sold fentanyl on the streets of Minneapolis to benefit the gang. Over the time that we have been working on these cases, many community members have asked us how this deadly drug gets here and who is selling it. These charges illustrate one of the ways that fentanyl is brought to Minneapolis, by mail and by plane from suppliers in Arizona. As a result of a coordinated law enforcement operation this morning, here and in Arizona, all of these defendants are now in custody. I want to emphasize how our investigation has shed new light into the operations of the Highs. We announced the original indictment, RICO indictment, against the Highs on May 3rd. The charges in the original indictment focused primarily on the violent acts carried out by the criminal organization, including numerous shootings and murders. Today's superseding indictment is the result of an expansion of our investigation over many months into the gang's trafficking of the deadly drug fentanyl. The distribution of this highly dangerous drug on the streets of Minneapolis is essential to the operations of the Highs. And I am proud that through hard work and diligence, our law enforcement partners have traced a source of supply of fentanyl to the Highs from Arizona. Together, we are dedicated to addressing the violence committed by this gang and to disrupting their ability to sell this deadly drug to our citizens. By charging these Arizona suppliers, we are taking an important step in disrupting the gang's fentanyl trafficking. Selling fentanyl in our communities is as dangerous and lethal as the brazen gun violence we've seen. I have heard directly from grieving families who have lost loved ones to accidental fentanyl overdoses, including children and teenagers. These fentanyl trafficking charges today carry substantial prison sentences, as they should, because, as the DEA has stated, when it comes to fentanyl, one pill can kill. As alleged in our indictments, the highest criminal organization, just based on what we have uncovered in this investigation, is responsible for distributing over 11 kilograms of fentanyl. Let me tell you what that means. The DEA estimates that this amount of fentanyl can kill hundreds of thousands of people. In my time as a prosecutor, I can state without question that fentanyl is the most dangerous drug our community has ever faced. It is inexpensive, and it is hidden. Most people who overdose have no idea the pill or other drug they are taking is laced with fentanyl. Prosecuting fentanyl trafficking is therefore one critical piece of our violent crime strategy. The nexus between fentanyl trafficking and violent crime is clear, and we are committed to disrupting both. So we have been at this since May 3rd, working our gang strategy. To date, we have charged 73 gang members and associates. We have seized approximately 11.6 kilos of fentanyl. We've recovered at least 38 firearms, including some recovered today. And as of today's date, we have obtained 17 convictions of the gang members charged, with more to come. With our collaborative approach, we believe our strategy is playing a positive role in keeping our communities safer. And standing with me this afternoon are law enforcement partners who continue to investigate and pursue Minneapolis gang members and the organizations. You will hear in a moment from Deputy Hennepin County Sheriff, the Minneapolis Police Chief, and leadership of the DEA and ATF. But this gang strategy, I want to be clear, requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. Standing with us, for example, today is our U.S. Marshal, Eddie Frizzell, who has dedicated substantial time and resources to this effort. We are also grateful for the hard work and support of our partners at Homeland Security Investigations, and I thank Special Agent in Charge Jamie Holt for being here today. I also want to emphasize the work of our additional law enforcement partners. Day in and day out, the IRS, the Postal Inspection Service, and the Department of Corrections have senior, highly experienced and talented agents in our gang investigation room working side by side with our prosecutors and our federal agents. They are integral to the work that we are doing and to our success to date. And the same is true of the BCA, who have committed significant and sustained resources to this violent crime strategy. I want to thank Drew Evans, the superintendent of the BCA, for his partnership and for the hard work of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Our local partners at the Minneapolis Police Department and Sheriff's Violent Offender Task Force have been both focused and effective in their work to bring down the Minneapolis gangs we are together investigating. They are building these cases and the cases to come from the ground up. Finally, our office has partnered from the beginning with the RICO experts at the Department of Justice. With me today is Kim Dammers, the Principal Deputy of the Violent Crime and Racketeering Section of the department. She oversees RICO prosecutions around the country and has assigned seasoned RICO prosecutors here in our office to work side by side with the assistant U.S. attorneys from Minnesota on all of our gang cases. This is a partnership that works and is making Minneapolis safer. Thank you, Kim and the Violent Crimes section. And I know it sounds like a lot of thank yous, but I want to emphasize this. With the depletion of law enforcement locally and nationally, pulling together everybody to work in a collaborative way is making a difference here, and we need it, and we're thankful for everybody for their effort on these cases. I now call on Chief Deputy Sheriff Tracy Martin for her remarks.
Thank you very much. Public safety demands a relentless focus on removing violent offenders from our communities. A key strategy in accomplishing this mission is stopping these offenders in their tracks and preventing them from perpetuating violence that is impacting our community. Law enforcement partnerships are so crucial in these efforts. We recognize the importance of information sharing, joint task forces, and community engagement to enhance collaboration and effectiveness in crime prevention. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office allocates dedicated personnel to specialized units like our Violent Offender Task Force, our Drug Task Forces, our ESU, which is like a SWAT, and analysts in our Criminal Intelligence Division who are focused on violent crime prevention, intervention, and investigation. We will be bolstering these efforts by adding additional staff to our Major Crimes Division in the near future. This infusion of new personnel will facilitate additional partnerships with other law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, and local level. We will continue to prioritize these collaborations between law enforcement agencies in the pursuit of those responsible for these violent crimes. This includes those who are putting illegal narcotics, such as fentanyl, in the hands of and causing the death of our community members. We would like to thank the U.S. Attorney's Office for their unwavering commitment to dismantling networks in the interest of public safety. We would also like to thank our federal, state, and local colleagues for their continued partnerships and efforts towards this mission. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney. In early May, we stood here together to announce the first round of arrests against criminal street gang members who have the greatest impact on our communities. Violent crime then began to decrease. In mid-August, we stood here again to announce a second round of arrests that also focused on these criminal street gangs. Violent crime continued to decrease. Today, I am honored and thankful to once again extend my heartfelt thanks on behalf of the people of Minneapolis to the U.S. Attorney's Office and to all the law enforcement partners standing here today. Your partnership and the impact of this work has made a significant impact on the lives of people in our city. I hear regularly, every day, from residents of our city how grateful they are and how happy they are to see and feel change in their neighborhoods. This is especially true in North Minneapolis, where during the third quarter of this year, gun violence and shooting victims fell to the lowest level since 2012. As we work tirelessly with our federal, state, and local partners, we are thankful for the leadership and support of the U.S. Attorney, Andrew Lugar, and his incredible staff. We have been able to fight violent crime with precision and bring those who are causing the most harm in our neighborhoods to justice, thanks to this strategy. And that's what's happened here again today. Across Minneapolis, as of today, all indications of gun violence are down by 1/3. There have been 20 fewer people murdered. There have been 163 fewer people shot this year, and on more than 2,500 fewer shots fired calls this year. Gun violence is intrinsically linked to the trafficking and sale of fentanyl in our communities. We must address that head on in order to have an impact on these crimes that are tearing our neighborhoods and families apart. As we partner with community groups to address addiction and drug use, we must also be aggressive on those who are trafficking that poison and bringing it into our neighborhoods. Overdose deaths have been increasing for the last 7 years exponentially. Minneapolis has gone from 83 overdose deaths in 2017 to 231 in 2022. This trend, by all indications, continues to increase this year. MPD has responded to over 2,600 overdose calls this year alone. With this recently intensified focus on targeting fentanyl trafficking, our sincere hope is that we will see a decrease in the harm to families not only across Minneapolis, but this entire region. We want to be clear. There is nothing to gain from trafficking fentanyl. The price you will pay is high, and law enforcement collectively will be relentless in our commitment to rid this cancer from our communities. The last time I stood here, we talked about the noteworthy and highly observable changes from an area of crime to an area of community near the intersection of Broadway and Lyndale in North Minneapolis. In August, I noted that at Broadway and Lyndale corridor had just one shooting victim in all of 2023, compared to 30 shooting victims the year before, and 38 in 2021 and 32 in 2020. Today, I highlight the fact that calls for narcotics activity in that area have gone from approximately 6 calls in 2022 to under 10 as of the fall of this year. Certainly, the efforts of this partnership represented here today have contributed to that reduction, as well as the partnerships we have with numerous community-based organizations in that neighborhood. Today brings the third round of arrests and charges announced from this partnership. This is not a mini-series. This strategy will continue, and we are not slowing down. We will keep our foot on the gas, and we are building on the decrease in crime we've seen this past year. And we will keep the pressure on. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Rafi Matei, the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the DEA for Minnesota.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Lugar, for spearheading this massive effort. It's an unfortunate fact that drug trafficking and violence go hand in hand. The compounding effect of drug trafficking and violence can be seen every day in our Minnesota communities, as evidenced by today's arrests. DEA investigators, in a combined effort with our state, local, and Fed partners in Minnesota, are taking more than just guns off the streets. We have seized staggering amounts of meth, fentanyl, cocaine, alongside guns, as you can see on the stats from just today. Among today's indictments are 3 individuals responsible for movement of hundreds of thousands of fake fentanyl pills between Arizona and Minnesota. These men are putting pills into the hands of High's gang members, and from there, these poisons trickle into our communities. As we can see, these gangs don't just use guns to kill people. These fake pills also kill people. Our DEA labs tests indicate that 7 out of 10 pills that are seized by us contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. A lethal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams of fentanyl. That's 10 pieces of salt. That's how much it can take to kill you. This tragic number falls in line with national statistics, where we're seeing that the synthetic opioids such as fentanyl remain the primary driver for the opioid epidemic, with fentanyl involved in almost 70% of these drug poisonings. As you heard from Mr. Lugar, the amount of fentanyl that was seized today equates to about roughly a million deadly doses. Put that into perspective, 1 million deadly doses is about 1/5 of the population of Minneapolis. Drug trafficking is not something that occurs in a vacuum. It crosses state lines, and in this case, one of the men indicted has direct connections not only to Arizona, but to Mexican cartels. Drug trafficking makes our world a much smaller place, and now we are intimately connected in an unfavorable way between Mexico and Minnesota. We don't work alone. It's in removing all these threats from our communities. We are very grateful to the law enforcement partners you see up here with us today. We couldn't do this without all of them. All our investigators who work tirelessly to bring these individuals to justice, your dedication and commitment to the job doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you for the work that you do and make our Minnesota communities a much safer place. Together, we are pushing back against the drug trafficking and violent crime impacting our communities. If I can leave you with just one thing from today is all pills being sold on social media and on the streets are fake. There are no real pills on the streets. You don't get it from your doctor. You don't get it from your pharmacist. It's a fake pill. As Mr. Lugar alluded to, the DEA's overarching motto, one pill can kill. One of those will kill you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rocky. And finally, we'll hear from Brad Engelbert, the acting special agent in charge of the ATF in Minnesota. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Lugar. As the U.S. Attorney alluded to, and it's demonstrated by all the folks up here today, this is a team effort. No one law enforcement agency could possibly conduct this type of investigation by itself, and I want to thank all of the partner agencies at the city, state, county, and federal level for the success of today's operation and the ongoing success of the larger investigation. Criminals are not bound by jurisdictions. They don't care about city limits. They don't care about state lines. They conduct their criminal activity with impunity, and that's why it requires a team effort to defeat them. As with the previous roundup in this investigation, ATF continue to have a team of agents and analysts embedded here at the U.S. Attorney's Office with the DOJ attorneys from Main Justice, the RICO attorneys, as Mr. Lugar mentioned, and all of our partners, contributing partners as well. And I'm very proud of the work that they've done and all of our partners have done to continue to put the pressure on the high street gang here in the Twin Cities. ATF's core mission is to protect the American people from violent crime. And all this particular roundup focus more on fentanyl. We all know drugs and guns go together, drugs and violence go together. So this investigation fits primarily into our core mission. And I believe that this investigation is a good example of that partnership, that this is policing done right. When we all come together and we do it together and we put the bad guys in jail, and that's a success today. So thank you very much, Mr. Lugar, for spearheading this and for all the partners in our efforts in this investigation. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay. We will take a few questions. If you've got any, Lou Ragoose.
Concerning how they were flying it from Arizona, does that mean like a gang member was flying there and then either checking it in luggage or carrying it on with actual drugs on the plane? And commercial flight, can you give a little more specific?
It's described in the indictment, which you'll have a chance to read, but people were flying from Minnesota to Arizona to pick up fentanyl and bring it back, and they did that in a number of ways that are detailed in the indictment that you'll read. Reg?
Will there be more indictments? Will we see more of these gang members?
Well, we have promised, and you heard it from a number of law enforcement, to keep this going. We're not done. Yes. Yeah.
Police, I guess, assume, or it comes from Mexico and it's going through Arizona. Is Minnesota getting most of their fentanyl that way?
I can't comment on that just yet. This investigation showed that at least one of the sources of supply to the highs was from Arizona. That's what we focused on. I don't want to answer that by eliminating other places that it could be coming from. But part of this investigation was to show where the highs are getting at least some of the fentanyl, and it focused on Arizona. Yeah, Matt.
These 11.6 kilos of fentanyl that were seized across how many different seizures was that? That wasn't all at once.
No, it wasn't all at once. It was across quite a few, and they're listed out in the indictment, so you can do the math. But that we thought we'd do it for you, Matt. Yes, Lou.
For Chief O'Hara, concerning the drop in crime, how confident would you say you are that these 73 arrests that have been made directly led to or contributed to the drop in violent crime or gun violence?
These investigations have focused on kind of the worst of the worst, that small percentage who are our most violent, our most prolific offenders. So there's no doubt in my mind that this certainly plays a part, particularly since we started off in May talking about how this was the first time ever in this state that RICO charges were being applied towards violent criminal street gangs. And I think if you run around and talk to folks in community, particularly in North Minneapolis, I think they would tell you that their experience has been, after this happened, they saw a noticeable change in their neighborhood.
So another question, what has this investigation revealed about the overall size of street gangs in Minneapolis?
You know, you asked me that once before, Matt, and I said I'm not prepared to answer, and I'm not prepared yet. Yes.
Considering what's already been.
Not because it's a bad question, but just we're going to hold that off until we get further down. Yes.
Well, along the same line,
Sure.
when you make big arrests like this, what happens to these gangs? Then they backfill with the lower gang members and then obviously continue to do what you're doing?
Not necessarily. One of the things that we're looking at is whether there's a backfill, whether there's a vacuum, or whether people are sort of turning away from this type of activity, which is our ultimate goal. So I don't think it's perfectly clear just yet, but we certainly aren't seeing the immediate backfilling that you just asked about.
A lot of people
Yep.
in North Minneapolis believe that the RICO charges is what keeps these gang members from continuing their activity. And you hope that this is another deterrent, keep some of those who are active in the gangs to say, maybe they need to reconsider.
You know, I think, Reg, you're right on it. That's exactly what we're hearing from defendants and from people that we talk to, is that knowing that RICO is coming, which allows us to charge the entire gang as a criminal organization, is having a dramatic effect. So we're hearing the same thing I think you are.
You spoke to the convictions that, are these people pleading guilty so far, or have there been some trials? And then are they able to help with the other cases that are pending?
So both pleading guilty and trials. We've had convictions after trial and convictions after pleading guilty, and I won't comment on the second part of your question, but it's a good one.
And just for clarification, the arrests were all made today?
Yes, the arrests were made 7 of the arrests were made this morning. Some of the others were made in recent days, and all went without incident, and everybody's in custody. You got one more, Lou?
Maybe one more. Considering that phrase, fake pills, is that basically just saying that it's not like a pharmacist make pills that are being stolen and then repurposed? They're being produced by somebody somewhere?
He's going to let me answer that for you. Yeah, these are pills that are either sold on the internet or sold on the street. They don't come from a pharmacy. And we're constantly out in the community telling people, if you're tempted to try a pill at a party or to try another drug that you don't know where it came from, there is a risk that it is laced with fentanyl. And that is not a risk you want to take, because just one pill can kill. And we sat in this room with a number of grieving families who talked to us about their child who simply took one pill at a party or at an event thinking it was something, and they died. And we don't want anybody else to suffer that fate. Thanks for coming.